Thoughts with Random Access. I'm Random Access, and these are my random thoughts. Recently, I've been thinking a lot and doing some writing on and speaking about the notion of turning the thought as sort of a therapeutic, endeavor. To you get that stuck in that place mentally. It could be physically, as my buddy Shane likes to say, through injury, illness, or life experience. Then we can end up feeling stuck in some way, and we have to deal with that. But a lot of times, what happens is the solutions that we come up for ourselves kind of run out pretty quick. We don't have enough tools in our toolbox, and we end up basically stuck, and we start speaking very negatively to ourselves. I can't do anything. I can't fix this, and then we run out of options. We focus all the time on the can't, and we don't get to the what we can do. We're not able to open our minds and open our hearts. We're not able to find the solutions that sometimes we look around and we see other people magically, it can be very disheartening. It's like, why can't I do that? And a lot of it comes down to thinking. And what I want to do is I want to do something a little bit different here with this couple minutes, is not talk so much about the mental health part of it, because I've done a lot of talking about that, especially on the Arisen Strength podcast, 2-part episode on turning the thought, and some various other things. But where that actually gets used, and people who are maybe suffering from mental illness themselves, but not a mental health application, but scientific advancement. There are many cases throughout science of where science kind of came to a head, or scientific discovery came to a head, because people were not able to think outside the box. They sort of ran out of ideas. A lot of, once we started thinking about the planets, there was the Earth-centric idea, and nobody thought differently than the Earth is the center. I mean, I look around, I see the things going around the Earth, I see some weird things happening, because with the planets, they go retrograde, they would do some different things, and it would be it was confusing, but they came up with very convoluted explanations. And people struggled for a long time to try and make it work. Things never quite worked right. What they were doing was overly complicated. And then at some point in time, somebody says, oh, maybe the Earth is not the center. Maybe we should put the sun at the center. Let's change the perspective of this a little bit. Not everything going around the Earth, but let's imagine the planets going around the sun. And then magically, things cleared up. It didn't really stop there, though, because when they started imagining that, one thing that they imagined is everything went around in a circle. The sun's at the center, and it went around in a circle. And people really struggled a lot with how to explain that. Even it was very complicated, and nobody really. They ran out of ideas, essentially. Again, come to a head, and then essentially Newton solves that problem with the inverse square law for gravity, able to come up with the equation, and actually things go around not in circles, they go around in ellipses. Overly complicated solutions now become simplified because somebody thought outside the box. And it doesn't just end there, but even more recently, 150 years ago, in the late 1800s, physics was struggling a little bit with light and electricity. There was some great progress being made throughout the whole 1800s. From Faraday early in the 1800s through Maxwell, some beautiful experimental and theoretical physics going on. But there were still some things that were just not quite right, and one of them that they were stuck on was everyone assumed, or nobody thought to assume that the speed of light was constant. No matter how you measure the speed of light, you get the same answer. You imagine light coming out of a headlight of a car, and you imagine the car's parked and you measure the speed of light. Now the car starts driving toward you, the lights are still on, and you measure the speed of light. You get the same answer. That light coming off the car doesn't speed up with the car. That's different than if somebody were throwing rocks at you. If somebody's throwing rocks at you from a parked car, they come at you at one speed. Now if they're driving at you and they throw the rocks at you, they come in a lot faster. The speed of rocks is not constant. You know, it adds the speed of the car. Mostly it adds the speed of the car. But light doesn't do that. Light does not have that property. So something weird going on there, but it's something that nobody thought. And because nobody thought, things started getting very convoluted. There was really very complicated descriptions of what was going on with the universe that didn't make any, I mean, you know, when we look back now, it's like, why would you even think that? Well, part of it, they were thinking it because they didn't ask the right question. They were answering the only kinds of questions they could ask, and so they were coming up with the only kind of answers they could come up with because of the only kinds of questions they were asking. And when Einstein finally said, look, speed of light's constant, let me start there. And when he started there, a whole bunch of things just started happening naturally. You know, there's the math started flowing, essentially. And he wrote in 1905 his first paper, his first paper on relativity, the special relativity paper, which essentially just that's the only assumption. I mean, it's very limited assumptions. It's like the speed of light is constant, and physics doesn't change from this part of the universe to that part of the universe, and over time it's the same laws of physics. So that you have some very, very basic kind of assumptions that you would make, because if you want the universe to be nice, let's make some nice assumptions. But it changed the way we view the universe, and with that one thing, it led to so many other things. But even Einstein himself was locked in his little box because he struggled so much with quantum mechanics. The weirdness of quantum mechanics he couldn't get past. He wasn't asking the right questions. He wasn't accepting the right ideas about quantum mechanics. And a lot of people feel that Einstein essentially wasted the last 20 or 30 years of his life because he was trying to not do quantum mechanics. He was trying to do physics without quantum mechanics. And it really wasn't until people sort of said, okay, look, this is what happens in the quantum mechanical world. We have to ask the right questions. When our thinking is limited, even Einstein said something along these lines, we can't find solutions using the same thinking that caused our problems. And when we get stuck on a problem and we've run through every possible scenario in our mind for solving that problem, maybe it's time to turn it over. Maybe it's time to get a new question from somewhere else. It's time to reach out. It's time to be calm and still ourselves. It's time to be open our minds, open our hearts, and listen for a second for that new question, the new question to ask. Maybe the speed of light is constant. Maybe the orbits are not circles. Maybe the planets don't go around the Earth. It's opening yourself to possibilities, and when we open ourselves to possibilities, a lot of times we start finding a flood of solutions to help us. And what will inevitably happen is we will eventually run up against another wall where we've kind of run through all the permutations of our new understanding, and we have to do this again. But this is the idea of turning the thoughts, expanding our views, taking the blinders off, thinking outside the box. All those cliches, there's reasons that they're so prevalent in our society. It's because they work. I mean, they're true. It's when we get stuck in our thinking, it's very, very tough to find new solutions. That's my random thoughts. I'm Random Excess. Join me next time I decide to put one of these up. Thank you very much.